The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, I hope you can all hear me. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody and welcome you to this training for the Feminist Wikipedia Takeover project that Amnesty International Canada are running to mark International Women's Day this year. And to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us and to learn more about the project and the different ways that you're able to participate. So I'll go ahead and maybe we'll take a moment to introduce you to some of the other people that you'll hear on the call tonight. Again, my name is Emma Jane, and I'm the Digital Activism Coordinator here with Amnesty Canada, based in Toronto. And tonight I'll be talking to you a little bit about how you can promote your participation in the project, and I'll also be keeping an eye on the chat box and the questions box, which I would really encourage you to use throughout the training to be able to bring up questions to organisers, and we'll also have regular check-ins where we'll be coming back to those questions to get some answers. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this exciting project and working with you all on it. So Jackie, could you maybe introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, my name is Jackie Hansen. I'm the Gender Rights Campaigner with Amnesty Canada. I'm based at the National Office in Ottawa, and I'm really looking forward tonight to talking a little bit with you about what this project is all about, the Feminist Wikipedia Takeover, and why it is that Amnesty has embarked on this exciting new project with you.
Great, thanks Jackie. Ailish, would you mind saying a couple of words about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name's Ailish Morgan-Weldon and I'm the Regional Activism Coordinator for Amnesty International for Ontario and Eastern Canada. And I'm going to be talking to you a bit tonight about the process for you all to participate, the different steps to this project, and then also giving you a bit of a walkthrough through how to actually post entries on Wikipedia.
Fantastic, thanks a million. Okay, so before we get into the training, I'll just take a minute to go through a few housekeeping points for everybody. So just to clarify that this webinar is actually being recorded, and we will be sending a link to everybody that registered for the training, and you'll be able to keep this as a tool or a reference point throughout the project to come back to. We'd really encourage you to actively participate and remind you that this is your learning space. So do participate, add questions in the chat box or the questions box, which you'll see just down on your right-hand side under where you'll see your audio. There's a number of different panels, and you should see it towards the bottom, a chat box and a questions box. So if people want to maybe take a moment over the next few minutes to just maybe pop in a hello, or maybe where you're joining us from in that chat box so we know that you're all here and can find it okay. So I know we are using a webinar platform, and it isn't always as dynamic as if we were to come together face to face, but we would really encourage you to ask questions, and we will keep checking in with you throughout the training via these questions and chat box, and this will hopefully be able to help us shape the training as we go. So we also have a specific questions and answers space towards the end of the training. So if things just pop up, you can also hold those thoughts until the end, where we'll have kind of an open forum for taking questions. And just to add that we will be circulating a feedback form in an email to you tomorrow with this recording, and also with a number of different resources. So we greatly appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to fill this in tomorrow. And this is another space where if other questions come up after you've had a chance to sit and think, you can raise those ideas, questions or suggestions with us. I see we've already got some people saying hello in the questions box from Saskatoon, people coming from Stratford, coming from Quebec City. Fantastic. So people from across the country. That's really fabulous. Welcome. Okay, cool. So maybe we'll just go through a quick outline of the agenda. So these are a couple of things that we're hoping to cover in tonight's training. We've already gone through some of the intros and welcomes already. And after this, we'll move on to hear a bit of an overview of the project from Jackie. And then Ailish is going to walk us through some key steps involved with the Wikipedia takeover. And then I'll walk you through a couple of the ways that you can promote your participation throughout the project and on International Women's Day. Then Ailish is going to do a technical walkthrough with us, so we're clear on what's involved with editing wiki posts. And then we might hear some questions from all of you and maybe be able to also chat a little bit more about tips and tricks. Great, I see some other people are already filling in the questions box as well. More people from Toronto, Winnipeg, and Langley. Fantastic. Keep adding in questions throughout. Use that questions and chat box, and I'll be watching. But for the moment, I'll hand over to Jackie.
Thanks, Emma. So I'm just going to briefly give a quick overview of this exciting new project that we're embarking on. We're so thrilled that you are joining us and are going to be part of the project. So why? Why a feminist Wikipedia takeover? Slide, please. Thanks. So the goal of this project is we want to make sure that in the work that we're doing, we're promoting gender equality, not only in the offline physical world that we're living in, but also online. And we really recognize through the research that we've done at Amnesty International that the same pattern of systemic discrimination, harassment, gender-based violence that we see offline, is those same patterns are also replicated online. And so we want to make sure then that our advocacy is not only offline, but also existing in the digital sphere. And so through this project, we want to highlight and address some of the systemic bias and harassment that women, that trans folk, that non-binary people often face online. And sometimes that harassment leads to people taking a break from digital spaces and becoming invisible. The systemic bias also means that there's a lack of visibility of women, of trans, of non-binary people online. And so through this project, we really want to make sure that we're creating visibility of women, trans, and non-binary people online. And so we're also, through that, we're trying to create the visibility of women, trans, and non-binary people online. We're trying to increase the number of women, trans, and non-binary people who are editing within Wikipedia. And one of the things we also see is that there's not a lot of women profiled in Wikipedia, which, as you know, is an online open source free encyclopedia. So there's a lack of biographies about women, certainly a lack of biographies about women human rights defenders, not only in Canada, but around the world. And so with this project, one of our goals is to increase the number of women human rights defenders in Canada that are profiled in Wikipedia. And so the reason behind this is Wikipedia in particular, less than 10% of their editors are women. And so Wikipedia itself, as an open source tool, is really hoping itself to increase the participation of women, trans, and non-binary people with that are editing and contributing to their encyclopedia, and we certainly want to be part of that. So what is a feminist Wikipedia takeover? So when we say feminist Wikipedia takeover, let's talk about feminist and feminism and what we're talking about. So it's the belief that women, that transgender, that gender non-binary individuals have the same rights, powers, privileges, and opportunities as male-identified people. And so what we mean by a feminist Wikipedia takeover then is really taking our goal of our feminist gender equality objectives and taking that to Wikipedia to make sure that women, trans folk, and non-binary folk are profiled in Wikipedia, but also that they're profiled in a bias-free way. So, for example, sometimes profiles have been written on Wikipedia that might emphasize someone's familial relations, who they are in relation to male-identified people in their lives. So we want to make sure through this project that we are highlighting the incredible contributions of people who are peacefully defending human rights in Canada, and doing so in a way that really is reflecting the contributions that they've been making. Slide. I think we have one more. So I wanted to just quickly go through what are we talking about when we say, what is a women human rights defender? So this is actually a legal term. It's something that is defined in international law. And there's two ways that someone can fall under the category of being a women human rights defender. So women, transgender, and non-binary people who peacefully defend human rights. Now this could mean defending any human right. This can be about the right to health, women's human rights, indigenous rights. This can be about freedom of expression, freedom of association. So any sort of human right, but the peaceful advocating of those rights is key. The other way someone could be meets the definition of a women human rights defender are people who, of any gender, who are peacefully advocating in support of gender rights. So this could be, for example, a man who is advocating for sexual and reproductive rights. So those are the two definitions that we use for women human rights defender. Next slide, please. So this project is all about trying to populate Wikipedia with more biographies of women human rights defenders in Canada. So it's quite specific. So why Canada? Why is this not a broader international project? This is the first time that Amnesty International has embarked on a project like this. And so this is a project that is open to people in Canada to profile women human rights defenders in Canada. And it's a pilot, so we're starting small. A broader international version of this project with a goal to add women human rights defenders from all over the world to Wikipedia is being coordinated by Amnesty's International Secretariat in London, and that will be held in May of this year, over the May long weekend for those of us in Canada. And if people are interested in participating in that project, we can make sure that we provide more information about that international part of it once it is available. The other reason that we wanted to have this project focus specifically on Canada is we want to make sure that we're getting the consent of the people who we are writing their biographies. And it's a lot easier for us to do that for people that are in our own communities. It's a lot harder sometimes if someone is a world away to try to make direct contact with them and get their informed consent to draft a profile. Now, of course, in Wikipedia, anyone can write a biography about anyone, but we're trying to hold ourselves as Amnesty to our same rigorous informed consent guidelines that we use in our research and our other campaigning work. And the other reason to focus on Canada is there's a real need. It's very clear from the look that we've had at Wikipedia that there are some incredible women and trans and non-binary human rights defenders in Canada with incredible, notable contributions who are not yet visible in Wikipedia. So we wanted to start here because there's clearly a need. So we hope that you're joining this project because you're excited and passionate about making sure that the contributions of women human rights defenders in Canada are visible in Wikipedia. So I'll pause now and see if there are any questions before we move on to Ailish, who will talk about how this project is going to be carried out.
Yeah, Jackie, a really great question was raised there by Elizabeth, and I think it's something that maybe we want to more broadly be able to hear a response from you. So her question was really going in to understand more a little bit about what is a non-binary person. So maybe you want to say a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So really great question. Thank you for asking that. So gender is a spectrum. And so if we look at a spectrum of male, of female, there are people who identify as male, identify as female. There may be people who identify as both, people who identify as neither. And there are a range of different gender identities. And so we want to be very inclusive in our approach and make sure that that this project is profiling people, not only people who identify as being women, but people from what we would consider to be other marginalized genders. And the reason that we're specifically focusing this project on women, on transgender and non-binary individuals is because we know that women human rights defenders face a particular set of threats and risks throughout the world, not only because of work they may be carrying out if they're working on gender rights issues, but simply because of their gender. And we know that the simple fact that someone is a woman or is trans or identifies as non-binary can immediately increase a human rights defender's risk in many parts of the world for experiencing harassment, whether that's on or offline, smearing, stigmatization, and even violence. And so we wanted to make sure that this project is gender inclusive and is open to people throughout the gender spectrum.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Jackie. That's all for now. There isn't any other questions for the moment, but if people do have anything, do feel free to use that questions box. Cheers.
Wonderful.
Okay, hi everyone, this is Ailish, and we're just going to talk a bit about the process and the different steps for you to participate in this project. Attached to this webinar under the Handouts tab, you will see a copy of the participant guide. You received a link to this guide in the webinar reminder, but there's also this PDF attachment in case you'd like to follow along. The guide will outline lots of important information and tips about how to participate, but we're just going to go through the most important steps today. So the very first step, which hopefully some of you have done already, is to create your Wikipedia account. I'll be showing you later in the technical walkthrough where you can do that, but it's really important that you create your Wikipedia account right away. Wikipedia, in order to make sure that the editors are all genuine, requires you to make a few edits before you're allowed to make any substantial changes. So when you create your account, you'll be prompted to make some suggested small edits, like to sentence structure or grammar that might need to be made to an existing entry. So please do create your account right away if you haven't already. A couple of important tips around creating an account. You can include an email address when you create your account. This is optional. You can choose to just use a username. But why we would encourage you to include an email address is because then you can be updated about any edits that are made to your own entries. Another important thing to consider is whether you want to have anonymity when you're editing on Wikipedia. Some people, because of stigmatization or online harassment, would rather be anonymous on Wikipedia, and that's perfectly okay. You can choose a username that doesn't reveal your identity. And then that last piece is just as soon as you've created your account, try some practice edits. Wikipedia will suggest these to you when you create your account, and it's a very simple process. And later in the technical walkthrough, I'll show you where some of that happens. I'm going to stop after just each step in this process to see if there are questions. So feel free along the way to post any of those in the question box. So I'll just pause a second to see if there are questions about creating an account. Okay, we'll keep going, but again, feel free at any point to ask about any of these steps in the question box. So the second step for this project is to connect to other people around you. There are many ways for you to participate and connect in this project, and you should choose the one that works the best for you based on your community, other folks in your community, and your own schedule. So the first way for you to participate in this project is on your own, and this is a very valuable way. You can just do it on your own, and you can still be connected to this wider community. So if you want to participate in this project on your own, you will be planning to participate from your own home or wherever you're going to do your edits, and you would maybe be planning to commit about 5 hours, depending on how long it takes you to write or post a profile. If you choose to participate on your own, you would be doing all of the steps that are part of this process. So selecting a women human rights defender to profile, researching that women human rights defender, and gathering the citations that are necessary to create an entry on Wikipedia, which we will go over later. And then you'll be writing a short biography or profile of that women human rights defender. You'll be posting that profile to Wikipedia, all of which we will be going over. And then you'll hopefully be promoting your participation and your posts that you've made. If you're participating on your own, you can access support from us on any of these steps. So say you're only able to research and write a profile, you could send it to us and we could post it. We could help you promote. We can help you with any of these steps. And you'll also have access to our closed Facebook group for this project, where you can ask each other and us for tips, for support, and Emma will be getting into where to find that Facebook group a bit later. The second way that you can participate is still on your own, but with some more digital support and connection. So if you choose this route, you would be planning to participate on your own again, but connecting with other people in the project online. You might need to commit a bit less to do this, maybe 1 to 5 hours, really however much time you feel you have. If you go this route, you'll need to choose which tasks you want to complete of those previous things that I outlined, including writing, researching, posting, and then you would match up with someone else who can complete those other tasks. And then together you would coordinate on report back to us and promotion of your participation. If you choose to go this route, you can again access support from us, access the closed Facebook group, and also if you indicate that this is something that you're interested in, we can match you up with people who have indicated complementary interests. So if you really have technical skills and you want to post online, we can match you up with someone who has already written a profile or vice versa. I'm going to go through all the ways to participate and then take some questions. So the third way for you to participate is in your community, but more in the digital sphere. So in your community with digital support. So if you go this route, you're planning to participate with other people in your community, other people in the place where you live, but you'll engage only with them online. And so again, you could commit as much time as you'd like to this, maybe 1 to 5 hours. Again, with this route, you would need to choose which are the tasks you want to complete. Coordinate online over email or in the Facebook group with others in your community about getting those tasks completed, and then coordinate together on reporting back and promoting your post. Again, you can access support from Amnesty International, from us with any of these steps. You can access that closed Facebook group, and also you can use a Google group or an email list that we will be creating. So many of you will already have received an email from me, from Ailish, saying either that you are the only person in your community or connecting you with other people in your community who are working on this project so that you can start working together. But also, I'm in the process of creating a series of Google groups for larger communities that have indicated interest. So far these are Vancouver, Victoria, Toronto, and Ottawa, where more than 5 people in each of those communities have indicated interest, and you'll be able to work together on a Google group. The final way that you can participate is in your community with more of an offline presence. So if you go this route, you plan to participate with other people in your community where you live, and also to meet up in person to participate in the project. This might involve a bit more of a commitment. Again, I have said 5+ hours, but it's really up to you and up to your group how much time this takes. In this scenario, you would need to choose what tasks you want to complete, coordinate with other people in your community around completing those tasks, and then decide what shape, what kind of in-person event you'll be having, plan that event, and again, coordinate on report back and promotion. In this scenario, you can again access support from Amnesty with any of these steps. You can access the closed Facebook group. You can access the Google group or email list that I have been creating. And you may be able to access funding for your event, depending on the style of event that you'd like to have. So I do have a few suggestions for what you could do if you want to have an offline event in your community to help make our project public. So on a scale of sort of smaller to larger, you could meet up in a cafe, a library, or another public place to just post those profiles together, to maybe promote on social media that you're doing this together, and just to make the project feel a bit more live to you. You could also attend an existing International Women's Day event in your community and request space there to do what we like to call a pop-up hackathon. In Ottawa, this will be happening at the annual Femi Awards on International Women's Day, where we'll have a table in the lobby where we'll be doing our Wikipedia takeover. Additionally, you could actually be the organizer of an International Women's Day event in your community that, among other things, could recognize the women human rights defenders that you choose to profile. So those are all the ways for you to connect, and they're all equally valuable. It really depends on your community and the amount of time you have. So I'm just going to give some space for, I see some questions have come in.
Hey, Eilish. Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of really good questions have come in that I think would be great if we could just open them to the whole group. So we had a question from Ellen asking about when she created the account that she didn't have time to do the practice edits, and she was wondering about whether she could do them later.
Yes, you can do them at any time. Until you've done a few, Wikipedia will continue to prompt you to do some more.
Absolutely. And also from Elizabeth, who was saying that she's new to her community, and so she was wondering about where would we be able to suggest where she could go to connect with women human rights defenders. So maybe you want to say a little bit more about the spreadsheet with some of the suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually the next part that we're going to get into. But absolutely, just to let you know, Elizabeth, that we do have suggestions to get you started. Were there?
I think that's it. I think that's it for now. Do the women human rights defenders we'd like to profile need to be approved by someone? Another really good question from Ellen.
We're asking that within your community you decide on who is profiled, and I'll show you a little bit later where we're keeping track of who is being profiled. So you really just need to enter them in that list, unless Jackie or Emma, you had something further you wanted to add to that.
I don't. Jackie?
Just that we really want to make sure we have the informed consent of people that we are profiling. So we do want to make sure that we make contact, because there may be some reasons why there are people who don't necessarily want to be featured in Wikipedia, and we want to respect and honor that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I will get into the next step then, which does touch a bit further on some of those issues. So the next step is to actually select the women human rights defenders that you want to profile in your community. Here on the screen, you'll see we have a couple of key guidelines that we'd like you to follow when you're thinking about who to profile. So the first is that they're local either to your community or to Canada. As Jackie said at the beginning, this is a pilot project where we're focusing on women human rights defenders in Canada. So ideally, you would pick someone within your community, but there will also be opportunities to profile people with a national presence in Canada. The second criteria that we'd ask you to consider is that you're being inclusive of diversity and equity, that you're thinking about the wide range of women human rights defenders in Canada and in your community, and taking into consideration who you're selecting. The final criteria is around informed consent, as Jackie just mentioned. The informed consent of the women human rights defenders you're profiling is essential. And in the guide that's attached as a handout to this webinar, you'll see sample language that you can use to get consent from the people you're looking to profile. So to get you started on selecting women human rights defenders, because as we've already seen in the questions, it can be a bit daunting. You might need inspiration about who to profile. Amnesty has created a draft list, which is available in the guide attached to this handout. It's an online list that you can access. and it identifies different issue areas that you might consider adding profiles or biographies to. So these include things like missing and murdered Indigenous women. It includes the labor movement and trans activists and different issue areas that you might consider adding folks to. And it also includes areas such as Amnesty's own Ambassadors of Conscience Award, which was awarded in Canada just this past year, where you might consider adding profiles for some of those people. So within those issue areas, you might consider adding local activists that you know of. So for example, one of the issue areas I mentioned was around missing and murdered Indigenous women. You might consider adding the person or the people who organize your local Sisters in Spirit Vigil to that entry. So those are just a few things to get you started. I've also written here, there is a project existing on Wikipedia called Wiki in Red that recognizes that there's a number of very phenomenal women, phenomenal trans folks, and phenomenal non-binary identified people who don't have profiles on Wikipedia. And so there is a running list there that you can contribute to for people who need to have profiles. I'm just going to take a pause to see if there are more questions.
Yeah, Ailish, another really great question came up here from John, asking about whether informed consent needs to be obtained in writing.
Jackie, do you maybe want to take that one?
Absolutely. There are times in our research at Amnesty where certainly we do get informed consent in writing. In this case, we'll leave it up to you. If you think that that would be useful to have it in writing, feel free. But we really, for this project, want to make sure that you're reaching out orally via email and just having some confirmation from someone, either orally or in writing, that you have their informed consent. And so I hope the language there is useful, and making sure people know that consent can be revoked at any time up until something is actually posted to Wikipedia. Once it's up, and there's nothing we can really do about that.
And maybe just on that as well, Jackie, another great question from Angela is about if an individual who you're interested in profiling has already passed or is deceased, is there still a process for consent?
You know, that's actually a really good question. I think we could get back to you in the Facebook group with a more robust answer. My understanding is I think Wikipedia does have some guidelines around deceased individuals. I'm not familiar with them myself, but we can look back into that and get back to you.
Great. And also another question from Anna about what about women with disabilities? Is this another opportunity to be able to profile?
Absolutely. There's some incredible women human rights defenders, women human rights defenders in the disability movement in Canada, and it would be incredible to have their contributions highlighted in Wikipedia.
Fantastic, great. And I see that another maybe 2 or 3 people have joined us in the last while. So just to say that we will be having these regular check-ins for questions. So if you do want to flag anything with people speaking, you can just use the questions box and pop in your questions there, and we'll be getting back to you throughout the training. Great, I think that's it for now.
Okay, so I'll just move on to the next step, which is actually writing the profiles. So we'll see that draft list that I was talking about with suggestions later, but now we're assuming that you've picked the women human rights defenders that you want to profile and you're ready to write, and what do you do? So there's 3 kind of key pieces about writing for Wikipedia that we're going to go through. The first is Wikipedia's style. So Wikipedia is written in an encyclopedia style, and to have your entries kept and not edited or removed, you need to remember a couple of key things. The first is to keep it neutral. So Wikipedia, striving for this encyclopedia style, wants people to be writing from a balanced perspective. We understand, of course, that there is already gender bias existing on Wikipedia that we're trying to counter. So the most important thing to remember in this is to keep it fact-based and not based around personal opinions. Of course, there's going to be bias in in entries. And so the important thing that Wikipedia wants people to do is to add other viewpoints and other references in order to counter those. Another very important thing is to avoid conflict of interest. So you should never be writing a Wikipedia entry about yourself, about a family member, or about a place where you work, or it will be flagged for removal by Wikipedia. And also that you should be avoiding original content. Wikipedia doesn't accept the posting of original content. Everything needs to be referenced, and we'll get into those references in just a moment. So the second key thing to remember when writing for Wikipedia is verifiability. So verifiability is a term on Wikipedia that applies primarily to citations, so to the sources that you're referencing for your entry. It's important for Wikipedia to use what they call reliable, publicly available sources for your citations, and this is where verifiability comes in. The reason for using these sources is so that other users can verify the information that you've posted. Wikipedia tends to consider academic resources the most reliable, but books, magazines, journals, mainstream newspapers, and interviews are also considered reliable sources. There's more about verifiability in the participant guide that we have produced, but one important thing to remember is that Amnesty can help you with this by potentially, for example, doing an interview with a women human rights defender to get more of this information. The final important piece to remember about writing for Wikipedia is notability. So people must be considered notable to be profiled on Wikipedia. And this is kind of a confusing term. What makes somebody notable? So a person meets Wikipedia's general notability guideline if they've received a significant amount of coverage about their life, and that this coverage is in reliable sources, and that those sources are independent of the person being covered. So it doesn't count as a reliable source if it's their own website, for example. One really key example of this is Malala, who, when she first became sort of known to a wider world, was included in an entry about the Taliban, and then as Wikipedia considered that her notability increased, was able to have her own entry. So this is just the final piece about writing for Wikipedia and notability, is to think about whether you should edit or create an entry. Notability, as I just talked about with Malala, impacts whether someone can have their own entry or needs to be included in a broader entry. Generally, for this project, you should be editing existing entries rather than creating brand new ones. And the reason for this is to help ensure, as we just talked about, that you're meeting notability guidelines. It's easier to include someone's biography within a broader issue category and meet notability guidelines than to have their own article. It also will help ensure that your entry is not considered a stub, which is a term that Wikipedia uses for an article that's too short or doesn't have enough references. And ultimately, it will help ensure that your entry is not flagged for removal. We want to be getting as many women human rights defenders profiled on Wikipedia as possible, so it's important that your entries stay up. So that's what I have about writing for Wikipedia. Are there questions about that?
Not at the moment, Ailish, but Jackie did just double check around consent in terms of if you are interested in profiling someone who is deceased and that process for consent, and just said there that it would be ideal if you'd be able to get consent from family members of the deceased person that you were interested in profiling. So that's just to refer back. But if people do have questions, do continue to use the questions box.
Okay.
Oh, Ailish, actually, we just got one in there. So people are obviously busy typing. So one question here is, if we are most likely going to be editing entries, are we really still working on profiles? That's coming in from Anne. Another question is around, can you give some concrete examples about editing an existing entry? I think that might be answered during the walkthrough later.
Yeah, we're going to do a walkthrough after this where I just show you an entry being edited. And it's a great question about whether we're really profiling people. And I mean, the more people that we have biographies for on Wikipedia, the better. And editing existing entries just ensures that those won't be taken down. Jackie, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add on that.
No, just that it's an excellent starting point. So once someone is included somewhere on an existing page, that's something that can be built up until it reaches a threshold where it might then qualify to more easily have its own distinct entry and not be removed. So it's more about, but people, if you search for the person's name within Wikipedia, it will still show up. So the person will still be profiled, it will still be visible, and it will hopefully create a solid basis where at some point someone might be able to have their own entry. But at the same time, it's a really great way to be able to link people's biographies to the social movements that they're part of, and really show that connection. So it can also be a very good thing when someone is profiled within the area where they're advocating.
Mm-hmm. And maybe there's just a bit of confusion between the use of the words profile and entry. So the example I'm going to show you in the technical walkthrough is adding a profile, a biography of an individual to an entry that is larger. So that will maybe give you a better sense of what we mean there. Okay, and again, continue to ask questions throughout and we'll keep taking them. So the next step, which we'll go through in the technical walkthrough, would be, of course, to actually post your entry to Wikipedia, and that's what we'll be showing you in the technical walkthrough. But once that happens, then you'll be needing to report back. So you've posted your profile of a women human rights defender, and you're almost done, and there are just 3 key follow-up steps that we would like people to follow. So the first is to let us know that you have participated and what profiles you have created by filling out the draft list that I will show you in a moment. The second is to monitor the entries and edits that you have created for more edits and removals. You can do this by including your email address with your username, and then you will get notes that your own entries have been edited. And you should also use dispute resolution, which is outlined in the participant guide if any issues come up. And as we'll learn about in just a second, you should promote your participation in that project. So I'm going to pass it over to Emma to talk about promoting your participation. But just a quick note that Amber from Arts and Feminism, which is a great organization that does edit-a-thons of Wikipedia, has joined the webinar and is happy to help field technical questions about Wikipedia at the periodic check-ins. Okay, so over to you, Emma.
Great, thanks a million. So I'm going to start off talking a little bit about some of the ways that you can promote your participation in this wonderful Wikipedia Takeover project. So I'll start off with talking a little bit about storytelling. Storytelling is a really powerful tool, and this is something that we'd like to focus on for this project, and I'll tell you why. But first, why do we tell stories? Because stories are an essential part of how we think, how we feel, remember, imagine, relate, and how we create change. And telling stories can be fun, and we can do it creatively. Stories can also help people to understand the political nature of their own experience. As we share more stories of the work that women, trans, and non-binary human rights defenders have been boldly pursuing, and as we share stories about why we are choosing to profile them and their work on Wikipedia, people will start to see patterns emerge, and this in turn will contribute to raising consciousness. One of the ways that we can tell stories is through social media. We can use digital tools to harness the power of online spaces and platforms to help us amplify and increase the visibility of women, trans, and non-binary human rights defenders and their work. By sharing stories on our own social networks, we can raise awareness of their tireless contributions and encourage our friends and families to also take action, to amplify the work of these women human rights defenders and to challenge the underrepresentation of women human rights defenders in Wikipedia as well as other online spaces. When you're sharing messages, posts, stories on social media, these are a few key hashtags to be aware of. Ailish, you might change the slide. Thanks, Mil. Yeah, so these are just a couple of the key hashtags that you might want to be aware of while you're posting and sharing your stories and messages on social media. We're hoping to be able to pull together all of our social media posts so as that we'll be able to create a storify for the whole project that'll be made up of all of your messages over the coming weeks. And a few key moments to maybe try and consider posting might be to let your friends know that you're participating in the project and how they can follow along as it progresses, to share how your research or editing process goes, to share some posts about what motivated you to participate in this project, to share who you'll be profiling and why this is inspiring to you, and to also retweet and post other Feminist Wiki Takeover participants' posts and messages so as that we can collectively amplify our voices and our action. And finally, so as that we can create as much noise as possible on the project on International Women's Day. We'll be sending you out a resource with some sample tweets and posts and other materials, including the recording of this training tomorrow. So hopefully that will be useful for the coming weeks. If you'd like to log on to the National Amnesty Canada Instagram account and be able to share stories from your Feminist Wiki Takeover with Amnesty members across Canada, you can get in touch with me and I'll be able to send you on the login details. And then we can create a schedule for everybody who's interested to be part of the takeover. Sorry, I think the slides are having a fit over there. Yeah, so we'll be able to create a schedule for everybody who's interested to be part of that takeover, and we can hand out the login details. We had a really successful bout of this for Right for Rights, which is one of our other major events that we did for celebrating International Human Rights Day. And this worked really successfully, and we had incredible stories and messages and posts on Instagram from various activists across Canada, and it really gives a flavour of what's actually happening, you know, who's out and about, who's involved, and it really puts a face to people who are participating. I think that that's really exciting content. So yeah, again, anybody who is interested in participating in that and just having a bit of a go on the national Instagram account, yeah, just send me an email and I'll follow up with you. One of the other ways that we can tell stories is through blogging. I'll show you now a recent example of a blog that was written by an Amnesty member who wrote about her experience of participating for a Right for Rights event to mark International Human Rights Day. And she submitted her blog, and then it was published in Now magazine as well. And then we reposted it on our website. So that's just another example of how she connected her experience and participation in a wider event and contacted local media. But then also we republished it as a blog, and it was an additional way for us to share this experience with more people who, you know, couldn't make the event, but also with people who did join the event, and then this was a way for them to reflect and share with others about the event that they were part of. Blogging really is a very simple way for us to share more about our experience with others. And if you're interested in drafting a blog that will be shared on International Women's Day, you can also get in touch with me and let me know, and I'll compile a list of people who are interested to write blogs, and maybe we can even create a blog series for the whole project and share it with Amnesty members and other people, the wider public. But bearing in mind what's already been said about consent and photographs, you can send on maybe one or two of your favorite images to go with your blog. So whether that's, you know, of the person that you're profiling that you want to include in your blog, just to bear in mind that consent piece again, that it's always important that we don't use people's photographs without their informed consent and prior consent. And if you are somebody who's interested in writing a blog but possibly has never taken on the task before, I'm absolutely delighted to be able to provide you with any support you might need and share more resources or materials with you. So if you're interested to just give it a shot, you can get in touch with me over the coming days and we'll take it from there. Oh yeah, so just also to mention that because we were hoping to put out any blogs that are drafted on International Women's Day, if you are interested in writing a blog, possibly you send it to us by the 6th of March so we can make sure that it's up and live and everything's working on the website to be able to share with participants on International Women's Day. Or if you'd prefer to, if you're planning to do your takeover or do your profiling and editing on International Women's Day, you could include it as a follow-up blog and send it to us by the 12th of March and we'll add it to a full wrap-up of the project. So as Ailish mentioned earlier, we've also created an online Facebook group for participants to use to raise questions and share resources and collaborate with one another, and where we can also pool some of our collective skills and knowledge and resources to be able to troubleshoot any technical questions. So we thought that this would be a great way for us to be able to easily connect with one another. It's a closed group, and we'll share the link with everyone who's registered for this training in the follow-up email, and then you can add yourself to this group and join the conversation. And we'll use this space also to highlight some specific times that Ailish, Jackie, and myself are free to be able to be available for drop-in calls if anybody needs any extra support or troubleshooting. So it's definitely worth joining this group, even if it's only for the duration of the project. Cool, I think possibly we'll just pause and try and see if there's any questions on any of that.
So there were just a couple of questions at the beginning, Emma, about the timeline for this project and whether if people couldn't participate on International Women's Day, they could still participate. And absolutely, while we're trying to center things around International Women's Day and we're trying to tell this story on International Women's Day, there's definitely still space for people to participate in a more ongoing way. Jackie, did you have anything you wanted to say more about the timeline?
No, we'd like to be able to have some biographies on Wikipedia, obviously for International Women's Day. That's a great way for us to visibly, publicly talk about this project and show some examples of some of the people who are being featured in Wikipedia. But this is something that can absolutely be ongoing. I know for myself, I'm really getting the Wikipedia bug, and it's something that's fun, that once you get into it, you might want to just continue doing it. So we hope that this can be something that has longevity for you. And if March 8th is a tricky time for you, please don't feel that that's a barrier.
Okay, those were all the questions right now, but again, please keep feeling free to ask questions in the box. Emma, did you have anything else on that, or should we move over to the technical walkthrough?
No, I think that that's okay. Just one other thing to flag, just I see that Marcia Yale has her hand up, and I just wanted to double check, and also Christine from Vancouver. So I just wanted to check in if you have a specific question that possibly you want to add into the questions box, or maybe you didn't realize you had your hand up. If you didn't realize you had your hand up, that's okay. Maybe just let us know in the questions box. Okay, we'll leave it there. Possibly it's just a mistake.
If there are questions after the fact too, we can always answer them over email. Okay, so I'm going to move to just take you through a bit of a technical walkthrough of editing on Wikipedia. This walkthrough is going to be about how to edit an article on Wikipedia and add a profile of a women human rights defender. Editing was chosen as the activity that we're going to walk through because it's most relevant to the project. As I said, we'll probably be more likely to edit than create new entries. And also because the feedback of everyone who registered was more that they needed to know this kind of activity on Wikipedia. As I mentioned before, Amber from Arts and Feminism is now on the webinar and will be able to help field any more technical questions. And if you want to see more thorough technical guides, there are lots of amazing videos I actually should say www.artandfeminism.org, and we'll make sure you all have that link. So I'm just going to take you over to Wikipedia now, and you should be able to see on your screens the sort of homepage, main page of Wikipedia. When you go to wikipedia.org and select the English version, you'll be taken to this page, and here you could go to create an account if you haven't created one yet. If you have already created an account, feel free to log in and follow along as we go through this. So I'm just going to click this login button and sign into my account. So now here we are in my account on Wikipedia. I'm just going to show you a couple of features before we get to actually doing an edit. And again, Amber will be here to answer more technical questions, and I will pause at the end to see if there are questions. So this right here will be my user page. So this is just something that I have added, and you can create this for yourself. Another helpful feature for you that you can see up here is the sandbox. And this is a place where you can, if you click edit this page, you can go through and just test out editing in a page that isn't publicly viewable. So if you just want to see what it's like to add citations, to add links, to play around with different paragraph styles, this is a good place to do it. This is the sandbox. So this is another place, as well as when you first create your account and Wikipedia prompts you to do some editing, that you can just play around. So now I'm going to show you sort of the anatomy of a page on Wikipedia, and I'm going to do that by doing a edit so that we can all see what that's like. I'm going to go over here to this Google Sheet, which is the draft list of potential entries that is available in your participant guide. So this is the list that we've created, and we'd encourage you all to add more. And these are different categories where you might consider adding profiles of women human rights defenders. And at the bottom here, this is where you will add the people that you are intending to profile, so that we know that we're not all adding the same people. So Jackie and I have added Connie Grey Eyes here, who is an incredible activist that Amnesty has worked with around missing and murdered Indigenous women. So we're going to go ahead and visit the page for missing and murdered Indigenous women to check it out and see what the page looks like, and also to add a profile for Connie Grey Eyes. So you could get to it by clicking here. This is a link to the page, but I'm also just going to go to it in Wikipedia. Okay, so this is the page for missing and murdered Indigenous women. You can see at the top here, there's a variety of different tabs. So this one, the main one, is the article, is what it actually looks like. This talk tab is where you can see different Wikipedia editors interacting with each other over various potential disputes or conversations that need to be resolved with this page. So this just might be a helpful place to go see if something has been already flagged or people are talking about it already. So that's that talk tab. If you want even more history of changes that have been made to this particular article, you can go to View History and you can see all of these different changes that have happened, different conversations that have happened. Okay, so now I'm going to actually show you what it looks like when you're editing. So if you want to edit this article, which we see here, you can go under this Edit tab and go edit this page. Now on Wikipedia, you can either edit visually or in source. Most of the participants in this project are probably going to want to choose visual editing, which looks like this screen that you have here, but you can also change to do source editing if you are comfortable with that and you want to make changes in that way. For the purposes today, I'm just going to select visual editing. Okay, so if we were editing this article and we wanted to add anything like another section like this, you can do that by using one of these paragraph styles. So we're not going to do that today because we don't need to add another section. But what we want to add is a profile of Connie Greyeyes, who has been involved in Sisters in Spirit vigils in Canada. So as I would recommend folks do when you're writing your own entries to add, Jackie and I have written this already, and then we're ready to add it. And we've also found all of our citations that we're going to use already so that we can go through and add them. Okay, so I'm just going to take the text here that Jackie has written about Connie Greyeyes with her full informed consent, and I'm going to take it and copy it into this article. So I want to add it under the Sisters in Spirit Vigils. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it in. So I've added this in, but the most important thing now is that I need to add citations. So here you can see that because we were already tracking them in this Google Doc, they're right here, so I need to get rid of these. Obviously, you might not have these in your own writing. And then I'm going to go take the citation that was supposed to be there from this document. It's this link right here to a news article, and I'm going to put it in. So to add a citation, I go up to this Cite button. I want to add a citation, and I can either do that automatically, manually, or reuse an already existing citation. I'm just going to do this one automatically just to keep things going, but then I'll show you what it means. So if I generated this citation automatically using the URL of the article that I'd already found, it would show up like this. It recognizes that it's a news source, it recognizes the title, but it doesn't have much else. So I might want to go in and edit it. This is what you would see if you chose to manually insert the citation. So we would get the URL, we would get the source title, and then we could add in things that we've already found, such as the person's last name and first name who wrote the source. So this is Blazebaum Catherine. And we would continue going through and adding all these pieces of information, the date, the name of the publication, which is the Globe and Mail, and other pieces of information that apply. So then I apply these changes and that citation is there. I'm not going to make you watch me add all the citations. I'm going to go in and do it when we're done on this webinar, but you would want to replace all these places where we would like to have citations with the actual citation. And it's important that any sort of piece of information that might be challenged or people would want to know where that came from, that you're providing a citation that meets the verifiability requirements that we talked about earlier. Okay, so once you've added all your citations, which again I'll do later on, you might want to link to another article on Wikipedia, for example. We've done that down here by linking to the article about Amnesty International. But if you hadn't done that already, to do that, you would highlight the text that you want to link. You would go up here and click this link button, and then you would add the link to where you're trying to go. So this one is to link to an actual already existing other page on Wikipedia, and this is to link to an external account. So you might want to do that if, for example, you too are referencing Amnesty in your entries. Okay, so that's how you would add a link. The other thing that I wanted to mention is if you are wanting to add photos, there's more of an outline about adding photos in the participant guide that's attached to this webinar. But the way that you would do it is to go here and to insert media. And when you click on that, you can either add in a photo that is already existing on Wikipedia, or you can upload one. So to upload one, and again, we go over this in the guide, it either needs to be your own work. So if you take a picture yourself, then you could upload that, or you need to use this tool, which we won't get into today, but there are helpful resources on art and feminism about this, about the Commons Upload Wizard, because we need to be using photos only that we have permission to use on Wikipedia. So again, you can reference in the guide more information about adding photos, but just to be sure that it's either your own work or that it's something that you have permission to be using. Otherwise, it won't be posted on Wikipedia. So again, obviously, I wouldn't normally want to post this until all my citations are done, but in the interest of time, we're going to just show you what it's like to publish on Wikipedia. So if I wanted to do this, I would go to Publish Changes, and then I would put in a brief summary about what I was changing. So I might say that I was adding a biography of Connie Gray Eyes. If I was just making a minor edit, like for grammar or something like that, or spelling, I would click "This is a minor edit." You can go review your changes to see what that looks like, to see what I've added, which is this paragraph here and this citation, and then I would go to Publish Changes. I'm not going to hit Publish Changes just because this isn't quite ready yet, so I'll just go back to Resume Editing. But then before I take questions, I'll just show you what it is we'd like you to do after this. So assuming I've hit Publish Changes on this, what I'm going to do is go back to this draft list that we've created. This is the profile that I said I'm adding. Connie Gray Eyes is being added. Jackie is the one who wrote it. I just added my name so that it wouldn't be too confusing. I'm going to put an X here to say that I've done it. I'm going to add a link by copying this and pasting it here so that we know where to find it. And then I'm just going to add a little note to think about my promotion plan. So I want Amnesty to know that I added this, but I also maybe want to let people know that I've been participating and have been adding these entries. So I might write, in this case, that I might write a blog for International Women's Day outlining that someone like Connie is who we're profiling. But the other options you see here are things like a social media post just saying you're done this, or even something in your local media. So I'm just going to pause and see if there are questions.
So there's nothing that's been popped in the questions box at the moment. I'm not sure if maybe while people might be still typing some or thinking of some questions that they have after that great walkthrough, Ailish, maybe Amber, I don't know if there was anything that you'd like to elaborate on.
Well, I'm very impressed by what you've covered so far. You've done an excellent job of making it very clear. One of the things I would suggest that might be helpful is showing people how, if they've never edited before, how to get the visual editor to come up. Often you won't have the opportunity to toggle. You'll have to manually turn on the visual editor. So if you go into Preferences in the top right.
Yes. I'll just leave. I'll come back later.
And then it's under Editing. And then Editing Mode. If you click down, you want to show me both editor tabs. The default is to keep you in code, but if you ask it, it will put the visual editor on. And that's something you will only have to do once. And then you save that change.
And this is just save here.
The other trick I would maybe alert participants to is if you're looking for an image of anything really, and you want to make sure that it's open source and you're not taking it, it's not your own photo, you can search Google Images for an open source photo. So if you were to go into Google image search.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a link to the Google image search tool in the participant guide.
Okay.
But that's
fantastic.
a great tip.
So then, I was just going to say, under settings, you could do an advanced search and click on the usage rights, which is at the bottom. And I use free to use, share, or modify non-commercially, but that's perfect, yeah. And then you'll find images that are free to use. It definitely reduces the quantity and often the quality of images that are available to you, but it's a good beginning if you're looking for something to add.
There's just a question that's come up there, Amber, which I think is really relevant, and hopefully you'll be able to say something to it. Is it recommended to add a picture? Karen was wondering.
Yes. So in the context of adding a biography to a larger page, it is not as important. But if you were to create a biographical page as the entirety of the page, so if Connie Gray Eyes were to have her own page, then you would absolutely want to add the image. Most people tend to do that in the info box. And having more content in the comments for people to share and use just in general creates a stronger article, and it discourages people from flagging the article for deletion. So here's an example of a page with an info box and an image. And that image is free to use and share and for people to promote this work through.
That's great. I'm not sure if anyone has any other questions that they'd like to ask of Ailish or Amber at this point. Please feel free to just throw down your questions in the questions box.
Yeah, and absolutely, like I said, we can answer more questions as they come up when you're trying to do this, but also to watch some of the really great videos that are linked to in the guide from Art and Feminism that really walk you through a lot of this.
I think I might have to go and put 2 sleepy children to bed, but I wanted to add that if people do have questions following this presentation or in the weeks to come, you can also email me. So you can send an email directly to Art and Feminism or to myself, amberburson@gmail.com.
Wonderful, and we'll make sure people have that information. Thank you so much.
Great.
Amber.
Thank you.
Okay, well that was kind of the technical walkthrough that we wanted to show you. Again, there are many more videos at Art and Feminism and available in the guide for more technical details, but this was just to show you sort of how straightforward it can be to post something, to edit an entry on Wikipedia. I'm going to head back over to our presentation so that we can continue to take questions. Were there any more questions, Emma, that came up?
There wasn't anything else. I think a couple of people joined the webinar halfway through, but said that so far it's been really helpful. So just to remind anyone who might have missed at the start, we are recording this training and we will be sending it around to everybody afterwards. And there will be opportunities for you to be able to connect with us and ask further questions either now or via the Facebook group, which will also be a link in the follow-up materials that you'll get from this training. Or you can indeed email any one of us. But But did people have any other burning questions that they'd like to ask of Ailish or Jackie? Maybe there's some other thoughts that came to mind for you, Jackie or Ailish, before we wrap up, while we see if people have an extra couple of moments to think of questions and type.
I think just to say thank you everyone for participating, and we do still have not a ton of time, but time before International Women's Day that we can keep sort of engaging deeper in this and see what the questions are that come up.
Likewise, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and via email, via the Facebook group. There's so many ways that we can continue this discussion, and recognizing that once you create an account and start writing and start editing and start reaching out to people in your community to look at who to profile, other questions may surface. So we'll respond as quickly as we can, and please really don't hesitate to reach out.
There's some great comments coming in there. People really appreciating the information and how things were gone through, were presented very clearly, and a lot of excitement about the project, which I think we're all sharing. But absolutely, I think a lot of people weren't able to join the webinar this evening, and so we'll be watching this back in the coming days. So again, any further questions that come up over the coming days, please do get in touch. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much everyone for joining, and as Emma said, there will be lots of more space to ask questions, and we will be in touch with follow-up materials and with links that we mentioned in the call tonight. Any final word from you, Emma or Jackie?
Just thanks a million to everybody for taking time out of a busy week in the evening to come and join us for this exciting work, and for your commitment to being part of this really exciting project. And I think we're going to create a real buzz for International Women's Day and in the days leading up to it, which I think is really, really something wonderful. So yeah, looking forward to seeing all of the incredible edits and profiles of people, the work that people do, and blogs and posts in terms of how this experience is for you. Just one more question there I think popped up. Is there going to be any more webinars?
There aren't plans to have another webinar. This one will be recorded and available to everyone. And then, as Emma mentioned before, Jackie, and I will all be available at various points to take direct calls about any questions you might have. And if as part of that you would like a walkthrough, again, of how to do a certain task on Wikipedia, we could definitely arrange that. Okay, if there are no final questions, I think we'll wrap up and let you all carry on with your evening, and we'll all be in touch soon about this exciting project.
Great, thanks everybody. Have a great evening. We'll be in touch.
Bye now.